basketball head coach here at USM, and this is Pack Chat number 3. Before we get going and I turn things over to our moderator, Steve Gilbert of the men's lacrosse team and vice president of SAC, I just wanted to introduce our folks from the Career Hub once again. So we have Jill Williams and Michelle Drucker. So these guys have been doing a great job for us all semester, and certainly giving us more insight on the ins and outs of what we can do to help ourselves get into our best career mode possible. But today, it's going to be a little bit different for them. They are going to help us monitor the chat box. So if you have any specific question for our panelists or as we go along and you want to send it out to everybody, and maybe you don't feel as comfortable asking it yourself, feel free to drop it in the chat box, and Jill and Michelle will help us monitor that as we go. We'll also see a few polls come up from Jill and Michelle, so be sure to be interactive and engaged that way. But we'll see a couple of those. They'll give us some helpful hints from the Career Hub along the way, but today's really about getting into the knowledge of our USM student athlete alums. So first we'll go to Jill and Michelle for a poll and an intro, and then we'll kick it off.
Thank you so much, Sam, and thank you guys very much for attending. Just as a quick reminder, we are recording this session, so if for any reason any of you do not want to be included on that, please just privately send a message to myself, Michelle, or Coach Norris, and we'll be happy to make sure that we exclude any of that, your name or information on here. So we're just going to start right off, unless Michelle, is there anything you want to add? But I work as an employer relationship manager. My colleague Michelle is a career advisor. We are in the Career Hub and we're excited to be here today and working with you. We're going to go right in by starting off with our first poll. Oops, wait, let me get to the first one. And it is about teamwork. According to the National Association of Colleges and Employers, which is NACE, what percentage of employers deem teamwork and collaboration as very to extremely essential in new hires? So please take a minute and answer these questions. So we've got about half of you so far that have answered. We'll give it about another second or two.
Yes, definitely.
Don't quite have everybody's answers, but then again, I don't think I'm answering. Michelle, are you answering? Good. Okay, I'm going to show the results. So 98%, so 52% of you, 14 people said 98%. And then we had about 11 or so, 41% said 77. And the rest said 35 and 56. So it's really exciting to see that teamwork and collaboration is extremely important right now to employers. So thank you, guys.
Awesome. So was the answer 98 or 77?
98%. Thank you. I thought I said the answer. My bad. 98%.
All right. Love it.
And one of the important things about this, of course, is that teamwork just might be something that athletes develop special skills in over time. And at the last Pack Chats, we talked about transferable skills. So as you think about going out into the workforce, teamwork and collaboration is something that employers are looking for. And most likely, you all have a pretty high level of engagement with that.
Awesome. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll go ahead and have Steve do the honors of introducing our guests here. So I opened on the wrong one. Excuse me. Go ahead, Steve.
So I'm going to kind of just get more into the accolades part of introducing them, and I'll kind of let them do their own thing after that. Like we said, just make sure it's on speaker mode and try to keep your video on so we can, see some faces and kind of just be more friendly with each other. So we'll start off by introducing April Cohen. She's a 2002 LEC women's tennis champion and LEC all-conference selection. She's also a William B. Wise Scholar athlete. And during the second quarter of 2020, Cohen and her team were ranked number 2 for sales, number 2 for volume, and tied for the first in transactions company-wide. And if you didn't know, she is in the real estate agent with the Bean Group. So now on to Fred Knight. He is a systems engineer with General Dynamics Mission Systems. He is a USM basketball alum. He was the team captain, and he is a William B. Wise Scholar athlete as well. And he's a senior systems engineer with GDMS, and Knight earned his master's degree in systems engineering from Pennsylvania State University in 2020. And finally, we have Renee Towne. She was a field hockey and softball alum. She is a nurse with Maine Med. She was in the LEC and Husky Hall of Fame inductee. She's a 7-time all-regional field hockey and softball player, another William B. Wise Scholar athlete, and she's currently a Progressive Care Nurse at MMC and works in the CardioThoracic unit. And now I'm gonna pass it on over to, we'll start with April and let them introduce themselves a little bit more.
Oh boy. Hey guys, I'm April Cohen. Realtor, class of 03. Been selling real estate for about 15 years now, and it's not part of my degree, but we can talk about that later. I did work in my field a little bit after graduation, but not really that much. I'm just really excited to be here and answer whatever questions you have. I loved my time at USM. I loved being a student athlete. So it's been great for, my adult life as well. I reflect on it a lot.
Awesome. Fred?
Yeah, so kind of as Steve mentioned, I'm class of 2017. I was on the men's basketball team and I studied mechanical and electrical engineering. And then also as Steve mentioned, I've been in the job real world for 3.5 years. I was hired at GD and I went in their engineering leadership program right after school. And part of that, you have to get your master's. So I got that at Penn State University. And then, after you graduate the program, which I did this year, you start as a system engineer in one of the rotations you did while in the program. So that's where I am.
Sweet. Renee?
Hi, thanks for having me. I transferred to USM from UMaine, and my first degree is in exercise physiology. I was really interested in studying sports medicine as well as competing at a high level, and I really wanted to continue to play 2 sports, so I played field hockey and softball. I loved USM. I loved the community. The moment I stepped onto that campus, I felt like I belonged there, and it was become my second family and still is. And I went back and got my nursing degree in 2010. And yeah, USM's been opened a lot of opportunities for me.
There's my baseball guys here. I'm leaving. Awesome. I think I'll start the next question with Fred, because you said you've been in that job for 3.5 years since you graduated in 2017. Could you describe how you made connections in the professional world while you were a student at USM?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the most important thing is you got to put yourself out there, no matter how you're trying to make the connections. Like something weird I did was I made like business cards at Staples, and I handed those out at like career fair. It's super weird. I still have them. I didn't hand many of them out, but yeah, something like that. So they can like remember who you are. Like when you go through an interview, you hand that to them at the end, something like that. And then, I know USM puts on a lot of career fairs and always attend those. I remember attending some in the Portland gym and then also at the field house on the Gorham campus. And then something I think is like the most powerful for people our age is LinkedIn. You'd be surprised at how many people you can connect with. Just, one person in this industry, and if you talk to them, they can connect you with like 3 or 4 more other people, and it just branches out from there. And then, you can always seek connections in your interviews too. Like maybe your interviewer played a college sport too, and you can like really connect on that. And I think that's super important to do. And just remember, like, relationship building never stops. So like as soon as you can start it, just keep it rolling, get better at it, hone your skills.
Awesome. So April, you said that you don't really use your degree that much. How did you end up making connections without using like a general sales like degree?
I bought my first house when I was 24, and my real estate agent kind of left me high and dry because I ended up buying a house from my neighbor that wasn't listed. So I just, decided that I wanted to help people and get into real estate that way. And I just started, chatting to people who were in the field and, picking their brain. I knew a lot of people. Actually, I played field hockey in high school, and my field hockey coach from high school's husband sold real estate. So I would talk to her about it. I'm not really, those who know me, afraid to talk to people and ask questions. So anybody that I kind of knew that was in the field, I just kind of said, how did you get started? How does everybody know who you are? What advice could you give me as a new person? And my field is competitive. You don't want to give away your secrets per se, but if you talk to the right people and you're genuine in your presentation and your questions, then people are always going to be willing to help you. So it's just about how you approach them and be yourself and be genuine and know that no question is, I'm 40 and I'm still asking questions, and I'll always believe that no question is stupid to ask. So I just wouldn't be afraid to ask people who are in the field that you want to be in, how to get there, how to be better, how to make connections. Just ask.
Awesome. Renee, with nursing being a super needy section of the world right now, what is the best way to kind of get your foot in the door there?
Well, we're in a nursing shortage, so I think that you have an opportunity in the healthcare field right now. I think the opportunities are everywhere. It may not be the first job you get is exactly what you want, but I think just getting your foot in the door, starting, getting some experience. And once you have a little experience under your belt, it's going to open a lot of other opportunities for you. And I think that that's okay. And I think, not everyone's going to leave school and start their dream job. And sometimes people think they want to go into one field of nursing, and in that first year or two, they realize that maybe something else, kind of, it draws them in a different direction. So I don't think anybody expects to enter an environment like nobody signed up to be a nurse and then graduate during these COVID times. But I think, as athletes and everything, we're just so adaptable. And I think that you should really draw on your experiences from being an athlete, and especially when you're interviewing, because I think that's that experience is just so transparent. It just can go across all sorts of fields. So yeah, I don't know if that answered your question, but
that was awesome. I'm going to pitch it over to the Career Hub now for their next poll.
Thank you so much. Hang with me because this is my I'm working on this whole polling thing. Michelle and I had to practice quite a few times. So our next poll is about networking. And it's asking the question of the percentage of people What is the number X percentage of people find jobs through networking rather than traditional job postings? And we know we talked about this a little bit before, but this is important, especially based on some of the answers we've been hearing already. So what is the percentage of the number of people who find jobs through networking rather than traditional job postings? Should I sing? Do, 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 do. No, we'll add a little bit in there. Not quite everyone answered yet. We're sort of a few more. Got a couple more seconds to go. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. I'm going to share the results. And it's interesting to see we're very evenly matched, where some said 85%, some said 65%. Small amounts said only 25%, and we had some that said 45%. The correct answer is 85% of people find jobs through networking rather than traditional job postings. And I know that Michelle also shared in the chat the idea of informational interviews and really connecting with people to have a conversation, to be able to say, this is something I'm interested in and I'd love to learn more. How can I learn that information? So just another tip that you might want to know about.
At this point, does anybody have any questions they want to ask of our panel, just based on what we have heard from their initial stories? And feel free to either chat here or throw it in the chat box. I know I have a question for each of you. Renee started to say it a little bit, but I want to know what each of your best transferable skill is from being an athlete to bring that into the real world. What has it been for you that you've taken? So I know Renee mentioned adaptability a little bit. I don't know if she has another one, but yeah, I'd love to know.
You go, Fred.
Thanks, April. So obvious, I mean, off the top of my head, I think the clearest one for me is teamwork. I think that, I mean, that's just kind of a original answer right there, but I really think that is like 100%. I mean, you saw that poll before, it was like 98% of jobs need that skill. So I think, you know, being athletes, we get to step up on that. You know, we have to go through times where not only do you have to keep your grades up, but you also have to perform at a certain level, like physically. And you need to navigate relationships, and you need to, you know, take care of your teammates. So I think like being a student athlete in the teamwork portion of that is just, that's going to carry you through your career. Absolutely. So I think teamwork is 100% the answer to that, for me at least.
I think I would just add leadership onto it. The way that my business is structured, I have a team and there's 5 of us. And it kind of goes into being a tennis player a little bit too, because we all had to, you know, do our own individual matches. And in real estate, we all have our own individual sales. But to get the team numbers up to where we want them to be, we all have to be working together. And we have to be just super organized, and we need to communicate. And it's the lead. I was captain of my tennis team. I was a bit hard on my teammates. I expected a lot from them. Early morning bus rides, you needed to be on time. I didn't want you to feel the effects of anything from the day before, bad class, late night, whatever. And that's the way I feel in my business today. I want the same of my teammates. We have a team meeting on Tuesdays at 9:30. You're there at 9:25. I feel like I learned a lot of leadership from being a captain in a college sport.
I'll probably pull off of both of them. I think teamwork is probably one of the biggest things, especially being in the healthcare field. You know, being a nurse, you're just a part of a healthcare team, and you really have to rely on the other nurses and CNAs and who are working with you. I work nights, so it's really, we don't have the resources that a lot of people have during the day with extra help or staff or management. And I think just drawing on those skills of being able to work together, especially in a really high stress situation at times, and making decisions, really, sometimes really stressful decisions, being able to make changes for not only the patient, but also the healthcare team. And I don't think I'd be able to do that as well if I wasn't an athlete, because you guys are constantly doing that on the field, on the court, on the ice. And I think that, sometimes when someone asks you like, oh, what are your best traits? Like, and you don't really think about it, but there's so much that you do as an athlete on and off the field that just is going to transition into your professional life so much. And it may be hard to see right now, but those are things that you should really try and think about, like when you're going into an interview process, or when you think about when people are asking you questions, like, so just something to kind of pick at.
So we have two really great questions that came up in the chat. And since Renee, you're already in the conversation, one of them is directly for you, asking
Okay.
how important Prevalent is LinkedIn in the nursing community?
I talked to my manager and some of the hiring committee. I'm not sure. I don't have a great answer for that. I think it depends on where you're looking at being hired, and if they use that. Our nursing manager doesn't specifically use that. I wouldn't say that it's not a great opportunity. Again, LinkedIn is still relatively kind of new, and I think it's a great resource, like Fred said. And I think it's just going to be kind of more individual on like the hiring committee and things like that. So.
Great, thank you. And we had one other question, if I can just interject so that we have, if that's okay with you, Steve, I'm going to ask the other question that was really great is, in what ways, to all of you, in what ways has being a student athlete benefited you in daily life outside of college?
I can jump on that one first. So I'll get into this a little bit later, but I mean, as many people do in their sport, you suffer injuries and stuff like that. And I think, being able to overcome that adversity within your sport and come back from that industry, that like really, really benefits you on the outside, not within your, profession. But I'll get into that a little bit later, but I think it really helps you handle adversity really well.
Yeah, I would go with just the pressure sometimes that we put on ourselves to be, to win as student athletes, especially at the college level. But I think we're pretty hard on ourselves. And I've learned that, I'm still like that as an adult, but I can do it a little bit differently now and kind of lean back on some of those experiences during like the LECs and all that. Just I put a lot of pressure on myself, and I think I've learned to better handle that. In a high pressure situation. I always want to get it right, and I always want to, get my listings or work with these buyers. So I'm competitive, but I think I've just matured more competitively, and I learned that from what not to do on the tennis court. Like when I don't get things, I don't slam I slam my racket down on the court anymore. A little bit more professional and mature, but it's just, you learn from those instances. So
Slightly less trash talk, or just about the same? Love
it. Let's be real.
I think you're always an athlete. I mean, many of you wouldn't be playing collegiate, level athletics if, you've been driven, you've been playing sports your whole life. There's a part of you that is in that passion, and I don't think that ever leaves you, even though we don't have any eligibility and we can't play anymore, even though we wish we could. But I think you just find other ways in life. I miss having 2 hours a day going to practice, and that's all I had to think about. But nowadays it's still competitive in my job. I want to take, the best care of my patients, and I want to do the best, what's going to be the best for, you know, that the floor that night and like my coworkers. And then individually, I still am very competitive. I like to, you know, I do triathlons now. I find another way for like an outlet to push myself. I also have like goals and like be driven for something, and then also like help with stress relief. So
Definitely. Those are great points. Thank you for sharing, guys. Back to you, Steve.
So next question is going to be directed towards Fred. During your time at USM, you suffered an ACL tear. What lessons about overcoming adversity have stayed with you in your postgraduate life?
So, I mean, this is kind of going off what I was saying before. So, you know, obviously we're all like college athletes, and, you know, injury is part of the game. It happens, sometimes terrible, sometimes not so bad. But for my specific case, like I'm super fortunate that I had a support system at USM that allowed me to turn, you know, that event into a huge building block of my life. You know, I had to work harder than I ever did before to get back to even where I was before the injury, and you know, he had to work even harder to pass that. But you know, I think that injury really set the tone for the past 4 years of my life, even professionally. Like, you know, when you face hard things in life, in your job, you know, you rely on the experiences you've had before. So that's what helped me get through, you know, having a full-time job, doing a leadership program, and getting a master's all at the same time. Like, I relied heavily on like my like grind ability, like being able to like push myself through situations where it wasn't easy. And, you know, even just recently, I had a medical issue that could have really ripped me apart. And, you know, the framework that USM helped me build, and I helped build myself during the event of tearing my ACL. You know, using that framework, I've been able to make myself better and carry myself through this injury or this illness. So adversity is obviously pretty tough, and no one wants to go through like terrible things. But I think there's a little bonus if you concentrate and like try and find the good that comes out of events like that, because it will give you a lot of like tremendous amount of tools to work with, you know, as you get older and, you know, inevitably encounter more adversity through your life, because I guarantee you there will be some. So I think, you know, taking a negative from an injury like that and using the lessons and rippling that through your life is, you know, it has given me everything. So truly, you know, don't want to sound fortunate for that event, but, you know, in a way I am. So.
Awesome.
well said, Fred.
Thank you, Renee. I'm sure you pushed through something too.
Never in
Broken
her
toes.
So this next question is going to be directed towards all three of you. We'll start with April. As you were ending your time at USM, how did you go about your job search?
I think towards the end of USM was when I really kind of, and I don't know how helpful this is going to be to any of you, but I'm just going to be honest with you. I had got into grad school. I had was finishing up a senior thesis. I had an independent study for my history major, and I was concentrating on the Holocaust. And I really wanted to teach. There used to be an 8th grade program that was for middle school kids about the Holocaust. It was like a 6 or an 8-week program. And I thought that's what I wanted to do. I was linked up with the Holocaust Human Rights Center, or the Holocaust Human Rights Center, something like that. I had done an internship with them. I was planning on going to Europe to tour concentration camps, got into grad school in New Jersey. And for some reason, I don't think I did the research and didn't realize after 2 years of grad school, I'd have to come back and do a year of ETEP. And I didn't want to do that. So I kind of took a pause to figure out what I really wanted to do, because I didn't want to go to school for 3 more years. 2 was doable, but then another year of coming back to USM, I was just like, oh my goodness, especially ETEP, because it's a tough program, or at least it was back when I was there. So I really kind of had to figure out what I wanted to do at that point. And I was working in an after school program and running a teen program, and I kind of hunkered down there until I could figure out what I really wanted to do. And I kind of leaned on my poli-sci degree a little bit, and worked in elections. But it was a different experience. So I was all lined up with my internship, and I had taken a summer class at NYU, and it just didn't work out. So I think I would just give advice to you seniors to just say, you know, if you think you know what you want to do, make sure you're asking the right questions of your advisors or people in your, you know, professors in your degree, to make sure that you have the next couple of years kind of lined up if grad school's a thing for you, or, you know, it kind of, you know, mine went from a history degree to teaching, so it wasn't like very linear. It is in a way, but it's not altogether. So I would just make sure you're asking questions. I clearly was not afraid to ask questions back then, but I wasn't asking the right ones. So just if you have a path, start talking to people about it to make sure you've got it all lined up. I think that answered your question. I feel like I went off on a tangent. I'm sorry.
That was perfect.
That was awesome.
That's good.
So I can field that question next. So I started in November, the November timeframe. So I started like pretty early. I think it was pretty early as compared to most people, but the way I approached it was kind of, I made a list of industries, of different companies that I wanted to possibly apply to. And I kind of ranked it. I was like, okay, I'm going to apply to the jobs that I really want and really think are interesting earlier. And, you know, because if you start applying, it's like, so essentially, like, I wanted the jobs really badly that I was applying to up front. And this allowed me to kind of dig around and find the opportunities that I really wanted. And I used Indeed, as probably all of you have heard about, and USA Jobs for one of the jobs I applied for. And luckily, from the jobs I applied to in November, I heard back from 2 of them. So I got pretty lucky on that. And I had interviews in December and January. And, you know, I heard about USA Jobs from other people in my class. And a resource that I used a lot were my professors, kind of talking, because, you know, most of your professors, I'm guessing some of them have spent time in industry. And if you can seek them out and talk to them about the landscape, you know, if you can interview them, I think that's like a lot of really powerful information comes out of that. So that's what I used. Yeah, that's kind of how I went about my job search.
Well, I'm not as young as Fred, so, but I think I did an internship when I was studying exercise physiology, and I worked at Midcoast Hospital in their cardiac rehab. And that was just amazing. I was like, this is what I want to do. And there, at the time, there was only a couple cardiac rehab programs in the state. And so, and once you're an exercise physiologist, you know, I had to still get my master's, and those jobs are far and few to come in between. And so I was working as a CNA, and I was just kind of like, I really want to coach. I don't really know what I want to do. Do I really want to go back to school and get my master's? So fast forward a few years, and I came back from living in California, and I started coaching with Bonnie, and I started taking some classes to pick away for my nursing degree, and then I finally got into the program. So already having the bachelor's of science, it was pretty easy. I just had to do the nursing classes, but that kind of opened a whole new set of doors in life for me. I was a student nurse for a summer, and that kind of got my foot in the door at Maine Med, and I stayed on that floor where I'm currently working now. So I was a student, and then I was a CNA there where I was going to school, and then I was a nurse, and I'm still there. So, but I think, you know, anybody that's in the healthcare field, especially nurses, I think of any field though, if you can get your foot in the door, even if it's just beginner, like CNA, I'm not sure what other fields they have, but I think that is one of the best ways to, companies really want to keep people there, especially, I'm going to speak for Maine Med, that's a big institution, but Maine Health in general. So I think if you can have an opportunity to do that, you should try and do that. Even if it's working per diem somewhere, part-time, it gives you really good experience for your resume, but it also it's those connections. You're really gonna make connections with people you work with, and that could be a key to something later on in your future. So
Yeah, piggybacking off that, internships are super, super awesome for making connections, for sure. Especially like freshman, sophomore, junior year. Like really, really put yourself out there and try and get an internship that you're really interested in. I think that'll help a lot.
Yeah, I did an internship, and had I stuck with everything, I had a professor who wasn't my advisor, but he was amazing. And I took a summer course at NYU, and he was just so well connected. He knew my professor there. That professor hooked me up with publishers so I could get books to write my thesis. And it was amazing. And he's the one that hooked me up with my internship with the Holocaust Human Rights Center. You meet that one person in your field at USM, and it's like a spider web of opportunity, and it's amazing.
Awesome answers.
There are two really great questions in the chat. Do you mind if we jump in there?
Yeah, absolutely.
One of them is, Samantha's asking, how did you choose your internships? Since you were just talking about internships.
I just wanted to become, if I was going to teach about the Holocaust, it's kind of like being a tennis player. If I'm going to play tennis, I'm going to be the best that I possibly can, and I'm going to learn every stroke that there is out there that somebody else might not know. And I want to be the best. So I wanted to be an expert in the Holocaust, and my feeling was that the survivors were passing away, and who else is going to be able to tell their story? So that my internship I chose that because I felt like I was going to get the most history out of it, it was going to make me, if I was going to teach about it, that internship was going to make me the best that I possibly could be in my field. So that's why I chose to work with them. And they had a facility in Augusta, and I lived in South Portland. They came to USM. I went to them. It was a dedication thing and a communication thing. So it was a perfect fit at the time.
I applied to a ridiculous amount of internships. They're super competitive, so don't get down on yourself. I applied to, the speaker company, Sonos. I applied to them. I got to part 4 out of 5, their interview process, and they had made you make a 1-hour video about yourself. And I was like, that's super weird. Number one, I'm not that interesting. So a whole hour is pretty wild. But I ended up with an internship up at University of Maine, Orono, where they the university hooks you up with a business that really needs help, or that is looking for someone with your specific skills, and you kind of get plugged in with them. So it's kind of just luck. And before I got that internship, I wasn't really sure that I wanted to go into serious engineering, but that internship kind of solidified that I was yeah, this stuff's really interests me. So I want to go down the engineering route. So I don't know, it's apply to as many as possible, and choose if you get lucky and get multiple. So apply.
When I applied for an internship in exercise physiology, I applied to a few different places. I was fortunate to get the cardiac rehab position because I didn't really want to do research. That wasn't my thing. I like to move. And I thought, I could give back to my community because I grew up in Brunswick, and it just kind of combined all the things I love, sports and helping people. Nursing wise, let's see, I did the Gary Co-op, which was a student internship through the summer. My partnership, I did the Dominican Republic trip, so service learning. And I think just having those two opportunities as well was a great opportunity. There wasn't any other internships besides. I think I did more of a career path. I was working as a CNA, try to keep my foot in the door that way. But if you have an opportunity for internships, even if it's just something small, it might be small now, but it's just going to build your resume and it's going to give you experience. So I think everybody's looking for experience nowadays, and whether you have it in the field or not, I still think being an athlete is still experience. So.
Awesome. So Renee, I have another question for you. What has been your biggest obstacle to overcome when preparing for an interview, and how do you rise to the challenge in that scenario?
Oh gosh. I am just I'll be honest, interviewing, it's never been my favorite thing. But I think, I don't like to talk about myself. And Fred, the thought of having to do an hour video.
It was wild. I was like, and they said make it about like whatever.
I would have just started shooting hoops or something. Oh no, but in all seriousness, I think I'm a little. I think I'm kind of reserved, a little bit more quiet, but I think overcoming that, I think just practice, if you have an opportunity to go through questions in your head, have an idea of what you might want to say, that stuff can help. Just like on the field, you're not going to practice something once and be perfect at it. And so I think that, but I think, having friends and family ask you questions, kind of a dry run through it. But honestly, I think when you're interviewing, it's okay to be a little nervous because it's a good sign. It means you really want it. But I think drawing on being an athlete, we're used to having nerves. It's just a matter of being able to control those nerves in performing. So, you may not be on the field now it's an interview or maybe in the job, but you guys all have those skills. You just have to be able to get it, yeah. I mean, nobody wants you. No one's going to go interview. Nobody wants you to do bad. But, and I think you also have to remember that we're all human too. So don't be too hard on yourself, because that's really easy too. Like I come away from when I've said things and I'm like, oh, I wish I would have said it this way. Well, you know what? Next time, maybe you do. So.
Awesome. I like that. And again, I'll push it over to the Career Hub for their next poll.
Thank you. So this is our final poll, and this is about well-being. According to a Gallup survey, former NCAA athletes showed higher well-being outcomes than non-athletes in which of the following categories? And you can pick as many as you feel you'd like to answer. Well, I get the impression that this might have been a gimme because there isn't a single person that did not answer all of the above. Congratulations to all of you. Well done.
Awesome. So many students aren't sure what they want to pursue for a career. And April, I was wondering if you could tell us about your decision to change career paths outside of your major.
Well, I didn't want to go to school for 3 more years. That was one of them. And not that I didn't like school. I just was, I think we all get to a point where we're ready to, go to that next step. And I have always loved houses. Let's be honest, I love helping people. And I think that there's a person in this chat, Christina, that will tell me that I'm probably helpful to a fault. And I have always loved houses. And like I said, I bought my house on my own and I had no realtor to help me. I cried every day and I was like, I don't want people to be like this. I don't want them to cry when they buy their house. And I thought that it would, coming off of running a teen program and an after school program, I knew I could still be involved in elections with my minor. And I decided to get my real estate license and help people buy houses and sell their houses. And it just kind of came down to knowing that I really enjoy helping people. And that's how I kind of landed on the house thing. I love looking at houses. So I feel like I'm a little nosy in that aspect. I'm like, oh, look at that house. So it's a job for me, but I really enjoy it. And I think there's like, sometimes it reminds me of like kind of helping my teammates in college and just saying, you can we get to, you're into your third set and your mind is mush and you don't think that you can push through and just saying to your teammates, you've got this, you can make it happen. It's going to be great. Just stay focused. And I find myself doing that with my clients all the time because it just it's a lot of paperwork for especially buyers when they're buying their house. And it's like, don't worry. End goal. We're going to get there. It's going to be great. So, but yeah, I think I just decided that I wanted to help people in a different way than teaching them about the Holocaust. And every once in a while, I kind of get like little pings and pangs to go back and get my master's in history, and maybe teach because it's another helpful thing to do, but it's just not my passion the way it is helping people buy and sell real estate. It's a really cool experience and something to be a part of. And I don't know. I think it just kind of came down to the helpful thing.
And there's no crying in real estate, at least not at the Dean group.
Yeah, not at all. Except for last week when all three of me and my two assistants just started bawling our eyes out.
Oh my goodness.
It can be, short story, had a contract on a house, it fell apart. I called my backup offer. Those brokers are the parents of the buyers, and the mom started bawling on the phone. It was the day before Thanksgiving. It's COVID. It's a lot. And we're all like, oh, we're so happy. So yes, there are tears shed every once in a while, but not every day when I'm, calculating my bills.
Fred, during the hiring process, what have been the most insightful questions you've asked your interviewer?
So just a little bit about my interview background. So the leadership program, I had to do 4 rotations within GD, General Dynamics. So I had a lot of experience with like internal interviewing. And what I loved about that was you can ask the specifics about the job. So I'm like a detail-oriented person. So, one question that I love asking is, about an exciting detail of the job that I'm going to encounter on any given week. And usually it takes a second for them to come up with something, and then you can start like batting that idea around, like workshopping it. I love workshopping problems and stuff like that. And that usually turns into more of a conversation. And I think, if you have nerves or anything like that, like Renee said, you always have nerves going into these interviews. That really helps to calm your nerves, get to know your interviewer a little more, and they get to see a different side of you as well. Not just like asking a question at face value and having to respond. So ask about the details. I guess that's number one. And another thing I love doing is, getting the contact information about people that you'll be working with in the future. And it's kind of like weird. When I first did it, when I was interviewing for GD, I was like, hey, so I was wondering if I could have 3 people, their names and their telephone numbers. So like, what? Why do you want to do that? But it is super awesome, like getting to talk to these people before you start, and kind of interview them too, like to see if it's where you want to end up as well. That was super important to me. So yeah, that's kind of what I like doing in interviews.
So you would get the names of people that you would potentially be working with, but they hadn't hired you, and you kind of interviewed them.
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I
Kind
did
of
that
like
at both. What's that?
Kind of like when we have recruits and they get a little bit more info from the players.
Yeah.
Off to the side.
Yeah. It happens every now and again.
Yeah, but that's important, to know what you're getting into. It reminds me of what Renee says in a way, but kind of in the opposite way. Like you study your opponents, you don't always know exactly what you're getting into, but I think that, you can hear a lot of rumors, especially in the society that we live in now. So why not dig a little bit deeper into these companies that you want to work for and see what people think, because there's so much information out there today that, you don't know what's true and what's not. So I never would have thought to, ask for somebody to, give me 3 names of my company and see,
And see if you connect, with them too. Like you can,
Yeah.
I think that you can tell pretty quickly if you like jive with someone. Like when we Zoomed the other day, like instantly loved April, Renee, like instantly love them. That was cool. So you can tell pretty quickly, like if you're going to jive with the people you're going to be working with. And if you're not going to, that's, if they don't have any of the similar like thoughts, or they're, dull as a butter knife, like, I don't know. That would turn me off. That would turn me off.
Yeah, and it's important to love what you do. So if other people are just showing up to collect that paycheck, like you're gonna dread going into work every day. So why not? You want to love it. So if you love, nursing, why not work in a hospital that you love being a nurse at and you love your coworkers? I've talked to Renee so many times about how, I'm like, why do you work nights? And she's like, I love my team. So it's just, so it's, you got to have that connection. I think that's huge.
And I feel like you kind of find out pretty fast whether or not there's room to grow as well, or if this is just kind of, if you're just going to coast along through, and you find out really who wants to keep going.
Yeah.
Which is also important.
Yep.
Renee, you already kind of talked about a little bit how you feel like you're a little bit more reserved. Can you tell us more about stepping out of the comfort zone in a high stress situation?
Yeah, sure. I say that once you get to know me, I talk a little bit more, but I think, even though I don't say a lot, when I have something to say, to my coworkers or to my patients and things like that, it's usually really important. We all have teammates or people we work with who talk, and they're all talk. But I'm more of a doer, and I think your actions definitely represent and can speak louder. And so, I don't know, I just like on the field, I actually had a teacher say that one time, like I used to get really nervous when we were doing these like public speaking things. He's like, but on the field, you're just like running down the field and you want the ball. And I was like, yeah, I do. Like, I always wanted the ball. I wanted to win. I wanted to be competitive. I wanted to bring my teammates up. I think that was it just kind of, that's in me. And it's the same thing in nursing. I think, I just step up to the plate, step up when the patient needs me. I advocate for my patient. I don't know. I've learned to think really, I can think clear and quick when I need to in a medical emergency. And I think I just learned that on the field, and it's just something that sticks with you. So.
Awesome. And this one's for all 3 of you. What surprised you guys most about the job search or the interview process?
I can't answer that one.
Just start your own business.
Yeah, start your own business is the way to go. I like scrolled through all these names. I was like, does anybody say they want to be an entrepreneur? You can come intern with me. No interview. Just kidding.
Oh man. I'll field that one. So once you get over like the nervousness, like, preparation, where athletes, like, preparation is going to be your number one. Kind of having an outline in your head. Don't memorize what you're going to say. Just have an outline in your head of how you want to tell your story and who you are, what's important to you, and stuff like that. So when they say, tell me about yourself, you're not just like, this is what I am. Like, have an outline in your head. I think that's important. But yeah, how fun the interview process is. And you spend all this time like building yourself, working on your degree, making yourself into who you are today, and you get to put yourself on display. That's kind of fun. Like, there's not many times that you can do that. Be a little boastful, like, I've done some interviews. I've interviewed some people, and the people that are like really timid, they don't really tell a lot about themselves. It's tough to get a feel for who they are. So I know this is like way easier looking back on it. But try and let like the excitedness, prevail over the nervousness and timidness, and you'll definitely have a better outcome. And get an opportunity to show who you are, which I think is the most important thing in an interview.
You want to be humble with just a slight dose of Kanye.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I don't know if that's a good reference or not, but that's how I feel. You got to be confident, but you also have to know when to, acknowledge your mistakes and all that stuff.
Exactly. Yep.
Brad, you said you've done a couple interviews where you've interviewed people. What do you look for the most when you're interviewing someone?
So obviously with the line of work I'm in, you have to ask some technical problems. I don't know how many engineers are online. I can't really speak to other interviews. But you have to ask a couple technical problems. And what I like doing with those are, getting a little bit into the details, but making the question more concept based. If you come up with the right answer, I don't really care for that much. What I like to see is, someone bringing me along with the thought process, kind of like workshopping it a little bit with me, that shows off like their ability to like teamwork a little bit, and that they're at least are a little bit correct with their thought process, that they're not way off in left field. But usually if you can explain how you solve a problem from a conceptual perspective, I think that's something I definitely look for. And then obviously, all the soft skills. We usually do one like technical interview and then a soft skills interview and stuff like that. So you have a different mindset going into each of those as well.
Awesome. So April, with COVID times, the job market seems tenuous at best for students who are about to graduate. As someone who survived the market crash of the 2010s, what advice do you have for us as we pursue jobs during the pandemic?
I have this conversation. I have two assistants, and one of them just graduated. She's 24, so 2 years ago. And I think you can't be afraid to hustle, and you can't be afraid to delineate slightly. Coming from the girl who doesn't work in her major. But I think that, during the market crash, I was, hustling as hard as I could in my career, and I worked at the Gap. I had bills, you know, I needed to still survive. I needed to buy food. I had student loans, you know, I was responsible for everything. So, you know, I was married at the time. My husband got laid off from his job, and you know, we didn't have a parent that we could move in with or anything like that. So I think that, you know, if you're looking for that job and it's getting discouraging, like I said, my assistant upstairs, she's wants to find a job in her field and she can't. They say they're hiring, and nobody's interviewing her. I'm like, you know what? Take a step back for a little bit. Go work at a brewery, you know, or go work in retail. Do something that kind of like a little bit of an escape in a way, that so you're not putting so much pressure on yourself to find something in your field, because you will, but you kind of just need to take a step back and say, okay, maybe I'll do something fun for a little bit that's going to still help me pay the bills or make me feel like I have a sense of purpose in a way. And then I'm going to, circle back in 3 months or 6 months. Just don't put so much pressure on yourself, because it's hard, and during that crash, I was like, where is my next sale going to come from? And, when am I going to have another closing? So trying not to, put too much pressure on myself and just kind of sidestep it to distract myself a little bit. So it's a wacky time to be in. So just find something that makes you happy and yet, still generates a little bit of income, because we were talking about networking earlier, and I am friends with some of you on this, and I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but sometimes I get invited to things that I don't want to go to, but I look at them as networking opportunities. It's not good, but you never know who you're going to meet. So if you get a job, you say you want to be a nurse and you get a job at a brewery, everybody always chats, and I know we can't be too close to people, but you're still going to chat with people. And what if you're serving somebody a beer and they're a doctor at Maine Med and they're like, oh, call this person, try this. You never know where one thing is going to send you, essentially. The universe acts in weird ways, and I'm not trying to be cosmic, but I think you have to look at those opportunities as you never know where it could take you. So it may not be awesome or fun, but every opportunity to talk to somebody is a networking opportunity. I mean, their aunt could know somebody who knows somebody, and they call them right there, and boom, you made a connection. So, but
I think being an athlete too, we're just resilient. We're used to having ups and downs, and it's going to be that way off the field too. So I think it may not be, opportunities, take advantage of that opportunity. A lot of places you may be working as you're trying to get your foot in the door somewhere else, they offer tuition reimbursement. So maybe you're taking another class or just kind of, so just there are opportunities, but you know what? We're resilient. We're athletes. We are used to playing injured. We're used to pushing through, and that's life. So there's ups and downs, and it's how you roll with it. So.
Sure. Off of that real quick, I'm going to interject, Steve. Back in the chat here, there was another question that kind of goes off of what you were talking about, Renee. Are there any traits that have carried over from athletics that have negatively impacted your work life? And if so, any tips on how to adapt? To anyone who would like to take a stab at it.
I'll go.
Oh, okay. Because I'm confused. I don't know how anything was negative, but go ahead, Renee.
I think I just being competitive, and I'm constantly striving to do the best. And I think it's 100%. And, things don't always go as planned or as well with patients or in the healthcare field. And I think that can be really frustrating. And I think it's just, I'm a perfectionist, and I think sometimes that perfection and attention to detail can kind of slow things down, or my expectations can be a little too high. And, I think also just being a team player, I expect the best and the most out of everybody that I'm working with. And so I think sometimes, I can be a little hard on myself or my coworkers when I feel like they are slacking. So I think that's probably one of the traits that is carried over in a lot of things in my life, but it's a
So
good
how
and
do you-
bad, right?
Yeah. So how do you adapt to that?
I'm not one to, point things out a lot, but if I see someone sitting and a lot of people are busy, especially if I'm in charge, I'm like, hey, Susie Q, do you mind doing this? Or kind of like, pointing out to other people like that, not everybody, being an athlete, we're very aware of like what we're doing, what other people are doing. And I think some people don't have that. So I think it's just kind of creating an environment where everybody's chipping in, and then individually trying I'm not going to solve all these problems for this patient tonight, even though I want to. And I think just like teachers, nurses, in any profession, you're constantly being asked to do more and more and more, and you're one person. So I think as much as you want to try and do all those things, you really just have to prioritize. And then once you prioritize that, like, you have to be okay, like taking a deep breath and being like, you know what, I did the best I could, even though sometimes you feel like you could give more, but.
Awesome. Thank you.
So this is my final question for all three of you guys. What do you wish you had known about the job search or the interview process?
I'll take that one first. So that's a tough question. I kind of touched on it before, but I think it's important to remember that they're fighting for you too. At the end of the day, you're the asset to their company. So you do have negotiating power there. So don't put yourself in a boat where, you're going to take the first thing you see just because, it popped up. And I think you'll learn that as you interview more, looking for your first job and stuff like that. I did. So definitely don't be afraid to tell. The employer doesn't need to know you're going to start in May, no matter what. The employer doesn't need to know a week after they offer you if you're going to do it or not in December. Like, they haven't planned that. They probably haven't planned that far ahead. So definitely give yourself a lot of time to like figure out, what you want to do, what's best for you, especially the location. I had to decide that, did I want to stay around the Portland area down in like Portsmouth is where I got an offer. And then, or did I want to come out to Western Massachusetts, which is like 4 hours away. So give yourself time to talk to people, and, figure out what ultimately is best for you. Because, like I said, they're fighting for you. So don't forget that.
I don't have much with interviews. I can tell you what I don't like when I interview people. Do you want to hear that? Does that count?
Go for it.
I hate it when people agree with everything that I say. Like, I don't want to hear that, because I think that I do everything perfectly. It's my way and it works and I'm great and blah, blah, blah. And what I need in life is somebody to tell me that I'm not right and that I can do things differently. And I like to think that I'm on the up and up with, social media and marketing and all this stuff. But I love it when somebody says, what about this? And I'll tell you if I don't like it or not. But if I want somebody to suggest things to me. So if we're in an interview and they're asking me questions, I love that, because it makes me think things differently. And they're not just sitting there going, yeah, that sounds great. I can do that. Sure. Yeah. Because it makes me think that you're mindless as well. So I want you to engage with me and ask me questions about my job, because again, I think I'm telling you everything that you need to know, but maybe I'm not. So if I think we've already talked about this, you have to, or somebody posted on this chat, you need to interview them as much as they're interviewing you. So don't be afraid to ask them questions, because something's boiling in the back of your head that you want to ask them. So just do it, and it'll be worth it. Maybe they're going to tell you what you don't want to hear, but then maybe you realize you don't want that job. So don't just sit there and agree with people. It's a horrible quality anyways. So, but that would be my interviewing advice.
Yeah, I think it's been a while since I interviewed, but I'm also getting ready to interview for a new position too. So I'm kind of in that boat, but April, don't get too excited.
I'm always there for you for growth, Renee. You're so good at what you do. It makes me happy.
This is why you have friends.
Forget I've seen you in action.
I would definitely, this is like, besides asking some questions, I think as a new nurse in a new field, I think it's important to know what opportunities they have and what resources they have as new grads or new nurses, new teachers for support. So it is, especially in the healthcare field, there's been, with the baby boomers retiring, there is an influx of new nurses with definitely new grads with less experience. So we're replacing new nurses with less experience and replacing really experienced nurses. So I think it's important where you're hiring. Like Maine Med offers there's a 1 year for new nurses. It's like a 3 orientation, and you get put in a peer group. What does that floor or where you're working, what do they offer to help support you? Because again, we are also investing in you. So it's important, to know what they are going to do for you. Also, I think it's important to have, like, before you go into your interview or after, I think, call a friend who's going to make you feel really good about yourself. Sometimes that helps. Also wear something that's important to you. So sometimes if you feel like you're getting a little foggy brained, if you have on, you can look at something you're wearing or a piece of jewelry, kind of help settle your nerves. And also kind of prepping with your questions, and like Fred said, not having like it memorized, because we definitely get people that you hear like it's been practiced so much it just sounds like a robot. So but I think if you are able to work in a few things about who you are and what's important to you, it's really going to be more of a conversation and not so much of like a question and answer. So
It was awesome. Now I'm just gonna open it up to the students. If they have any particular questions that they want to ask, they can throw it in the chat box so they can unmute and ask.
I want to know, I know I'm not a student, but I want to know. I want to know what, like, either like your funniest interview story or like a time that you made like just a complete bonehead mistake on an interview, like what that was.
Oh, not an interview, but.
Or maybe on like your resume cover letter, if that was a part of it either, or networking.
I fell down the stairs at my first open house in front of the owner of my company. I feel like this isn't surprising, but it definitely broke the ice. And it was my, I think it was like a month after getting my license, and it was my very first open house, and we were leaving. I was like, ooh, crushed it, talked to people, was friendly, gave out my business cards, fell down the stairs. So, it's
That's fantastic.
And I guess in a way that was part of my interview process in a way, because you can't, he knew that I was a new agent. So it was more like it was an interview, but, on-site interview, I guess, how well could you do this? Do you interact with people well? So it was a little bit different. I already kind of had the job, but excellent.
I get real, well, you probably couldn't tell, but I do get really nervous. And so I have to dress appropriately so I don't sweat.
Same, Renee.
I've got a pretty funny one. So you know that like PT room in between, by the basketball court, in between, where was it? I can't remember what the room name is, but essentially there's a bunch of athletic training beds. There's this like skeleton in there, and I had a personality interview right after practice that like I tried to reschedule, they couldn't do it. So I had to go, I like literally left the practice floor, still sweaty in Jersey, and went in there to interview. And I thought it was just a phone call, but it ended up being a Skype meeting. And I was sitting on one of the athletic training beds, and the skeleton was in the background. My interviewer was like, "What are you doing?" Like they didn't know that I like was played sports yet or anything like that. So I had to explain that whole thing to him, why I was in there, why I was disgustingly sweaty. Like, so that was, it was a good icebreaker, that's for sure. Skeleton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was strange, funny.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing, guys. Actually, April, I also fell down, but not in an interview. It was in a real game day situation. Fred, were you there? At Rick? Hopefully you weren't.
You fell?
Oh yeah, right in the middle of a game. Missed the chair completely, all the way down.
Oh,
Oh no.
And that was the day I learned that I should always wear a belt if I am wearing pants.
oh.
Oh
Well,
no.
yeah. Well, now that you said that, I was wearing a skirt when I fell down the stairs.
Oh.
Oh, goodness.
Love. Other questions? Looks like we got one from Morgan. What was the worst part of the transition from college and college sports to regular adult life?
I can, yeah, I think Renee's gonna say it. You miss your team so much.
Yeah.
Like, in the fall, oh,
even
God.
now, like the change in seasons, like I'm like, okay, it's field hockey season, and then in the spring it's like softball. I mean, I still drive by fields and I'm like, oh, look at them playing. I think it's just, I think, and it's just not just the season. I mean, I was at USM for 4 years. You think about it, that's a big part of your life when you're, between 18 to 20 or whatever, I had such great, my coaches, Bonnie, Meredith, and Kim was there. I mean, I had such incredible role models that were just really impressionable. I think, that time that I was at, and I just missed not only my teammates, but just the community. Like SAC was, we loved volunteering. Obviously I'm a nurse, I love helping people. So, but just the little things like that around campus, and I don't know, taking, just things like that. I think that was the biggest thing. I guess I didn't realize how much that it was a part of my life until it wasn't there. And so I think that was the biggest thing. I was kind of I'd played sports my whole life, and then all of a sudden that was it. Like, and I wasn't really prepared for that. I mean, I played in an adult league out in California, and I still played here and there, but it's just never really been the same. So
yeah, I miss, like, every fall I feel like, oh, I want to go back to school and I want to pick up a racket, and it was weird because tennis was in the fall in college, but in the spring in high school. So it's amazing how I associate the two so quickly now, because you think of spring warm sports, you think of tennis, but every fall I'm like that. And I kind of want to just get together with all my teammates, and we shared a really raw experience too, because when I was in college was during 9/11, and we had literally just got back from a weekend trip to New York. We were in the city playing on the rooftop courts at NYU the weekend of 9/11, or right before that Tuesday. So we shared a lot together. We were a really close group of girls, and there was only a few of us. Tennis is a much smaller team than the other team. So I miss them all the time. And we didn't have social media when I graduated. We had AIM, but to be able to reconnect with them now, I feel really old saying this, but it's just like, social media has really, been able to bring us all together. But I miss those road trips to Rick, or to, what was it, UMass Boston was always fun to go to. So those are the experiences that I really miss. So if you can somehow, like, I don't know, create a reunion with your team or something like that, I think that would be the best thing to do, because that was always the hardest, or it still kind of is. It's been a while.
Definitely. And the social media, I was around during the Snapchat days, so I get that snap memory, like the reminder of how long, like October 15th, there's this one snap of driving to tryouts, and I always get that on October 15th, and I'm like, holy smokes, I miss that so badly. But I mean, cherish the time with your friends. I mean, there's not going to be another time where, it is tough being a college athlete and maintaining your grades. But I mean, being around all your friends, it's at the same time, there's not going to be another time like that. So definitely cherish all that time and, stay connected with everyone.
April, I really want to know what your favorite away message was for instant messenger.
Oh, man.
They probably don't even know what that is.
It was probably, I'm pretty sure that I had like some
cheesy
quote.
Love it.
And it was probably something like Fleetwood Mac, because it made me feel really mature, and nobody else listened to Fleetwood Mac. Oh man.
So kind of going off of that question from Morgan. So that's kind of the not so fun part of transitioning, into the real world. How have you guys, filled those gaps from transitioning from competition to careers? Like how does that look like for you outside of your job? I mean, we've talked specifically about careers. Like,
I mean, depending what field you go into, I mean, there's a lot of coworkers I've worked with for years now who I consider great friends. There's in some of the younger nurses who get into nursing younger, I was a little bit older, but they create a bond and they're friends, and they come from all different backgrounds, different schools. I'm still really good friends with a lot of my teammates, and some of them are my closest friends. So I don't think you ever lose some of that bond. But again, it's just, even though I've worked with a lot of people, I still don't have that connection I have like I did with my teammates when I was in school. But I'm also, I've met a lot of people through like the endurance world now, and, we share a lot of the same qualities, and love the pain cave and love to suffer. And we go to races together and cheer each other on. So I think, there's opportunities out there depending like what direction you want to go sometimes, so.
Do we love it, Renee, or do we?
Yeah.
Or do we do it?
Yeah. I love watching it.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, Renee and April, in all their spare time, they like to do Ironman training, which is psychotic, but swim, bike, run. These two have both done a full Ironman. Renee's done 3. So you're crazy, but it's a good way to keep the competition going.
And it's a great way to keep the kind of team thing going. Renee and I went to USM together. And then another one of our friends from college is on the team as well. And I think that Renee probably recruited her, and I found out about our team in a kind of a random way. But it's amazing how, neither one of us swam, ran, or biked in college. Obviously running is, a thing in any sport that you do, but to transition into an endurance world, it's kind of nice to do it with somebody that's, that kind of went through the same college experiences with you and stuff like that. So it's really cool to be able to have that experience with them. So and not everybody that, I don't know that the USM community is as Maine-ish as it was when we were going there. And we have one friend, Sarah, that's from out of state, but for the most part, a lot of us were from Maine. So it was easy for us to kind of still hang out as adults as well.
Yeah. I think even if you don't find, like, I mean, physically I like to keep moving, but I also assisted Bonnie for many years. And I think that was another great way that kind of filled that like hole I was missing in my heart, was to give back and be a part of the sport still. And I think even if it's not at a collegiate level, they're always looking for volunteers or coaches for junior high, rec, I mean, you name it. And I think that's always a great way to stay involved with sports and athletics. And you guys do that a lot with SAC already. I think you guys work with Special Olympics, and your teams individually do like play days and stuff like that. So if that it's not going to be, it's a passion that doesn't die, so you got to find a way to like fulfill it as you get older, and you'll figure it out. But it's a great way to stay involved when your collegiate years are over. So,
and going back to connections, I ended up coaching tennis at Cheverus for 2 or 3 years, because a family that I used to babysit for, her daughter was in high school at Cheverus and they needed an assistant coach. And then my tennis coach, Wayne, was there as well. And I ended up coaching with him at Cheverus. I was coaching girls while he was coaching the men's team. And it was awesome to be able to kind of lean on him for, just advice and, how to, kids, and Renee, you may be able to touch on this, the playing to teaching role. Sometimes it can come naturally, and then sometimes we can overthink it, but it, like she said, it kind of filled that void for a little bit to be able to kind of get back into it. And to hit with the girls on the court was pretty cool.
Yeah, and just keep yourself open to different stuff. Like when I came out here, I knew absolutely nobody, and use your personality and who you are to find people that are like-minded, different-minded. It doesn't really matter. But like I got involved in Habitats for Humanity, and then all of a sudden, like I ended up being like the coordinator for Western Mass, which has been like really cool, very rewarding. So just keep yourself open, and you'll definitely build like a network by accident. So it's a lot of fun.
Other questions from people? If anybody wants to stay on and have maybe an individual discussion with any of our panelists, you're more than welcome to do that. But if not, maybe you want to reach out individually. Do our panelists, do you guys mind if we take some of your contact information? Like just email?
That's fine.
Awesome. Do you mind dropping your email in the chat box for us at this moment?
At all.
Type message here.
Yeah, right. Give that Fleetwood Mac away message. Put that up.
Hey, it's relevant again on TikTok. So just grab some cranberry juice and you're totally set.
Oh, hilarious. But I hope one of the takeaways for everybody is that, our Husky pack is pretty tightly knit, and you never know how far we can travel across the country and the world just based on, who we know, what we know, and, what we're capable of. So we really appreciate your time for sure. Fred, April, Renee, you guys are awesome. Jill and Michelle, thank you so much for all of your work with Career Hub this semester and beyond. Huge help. Steve, blew me away today. Nicely done.
Thanks, everybody. Excellent.
Yeah, thanks.